Welcome. Thanks to the organisers for inviting me, and it's a privilege to kick off this important meeting. And I've been wondering, is the scale of this issue something like this? Sometimes I think it's very much like this. So the outline of my talk is here. I'm the first speaker, so I will touch a little bit on definitions. My focus is very much on education, and for that I'm going to be focusing on schools as a key motivator for getting students into plants for the rest of their lives, and it's a motivator which can be enhanced. I'm going to start with a positive story. Horticulture. The horticulture industry is the multi-billion savior of plant blindness, if you like. £25 billion estimated in 2017, with a membership of 415,000. This is surely to be celebrated. We love plants, huge numbers involved in this, and this is something that's enhanced during lockdown, particularly the houseplant side. David Attenborough even on Channel 4 News, there are snowdrops in my garden, it lifts the heart. Indeed it does. And it makes me wonder whether there could be a bit more plant awareness in nature documentaries. It's 25 years since The Private Life of Plants. There have been one or two others since then, but at that rate there's going to be just 3 other plant-related documentaries this century. We've got The Green Planet coming up, which is great, but I do think the 21st century is the time where we really need to join things up. We should be looking at inclusive nature documentaries which show plants, animals, microbes, fungi in the round. Documentaries are a vital way to communicate with a massive audience. I think 500 million watched Life on Earth in the 1970s. So there's really a lot to be done here, and this is the much wider scheme of things. So one of the things that lockdown has done for us is to put meetings like this online, and that has benefits, but also nature has been liberated by lockdown. And here's some data from the Natural History Museum, the kinds of things, the kinds of nature that we've seen more of. Okay, very nice, bats, squirrels, deer and so on, but where are the plants? Thank heavens we have the charity Plant Life, who ran this spot wildflowers on your lockdown walks to compensate. But there are many ways in which plants are not, we're not aware of plants as much as they deserve. And there's one example of here which I call, or has been called, looking but not seeing. So this is about planting trees. This is going to be saving the climate crisis, of course, as politicians would have us believe. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Here's an example of planting trees in peatlands. Crazy ecologically, and it's not seeing. And there are lots of examples of this pervading our plant unaware world these days. There are big issues here. There is no doubt in my mind that plants offer solutions to all the global environmental crises we face on the planet, and we need plants in our education system at all levels. And we could ask, what would Greta say? I wish she was a botanist. There is a groundswell, an increasing groundswell amongst the younger generation and beyond, concerned with climate, species extinction, dietary and mental health issues, and botanists have a responsibility more than ever to provide the environment for teaching about the beauty, fascination, fundamental importance of plants. So why are we blind to plants? Why would that happen? Well, there are some early roots. We can go back to Aristotle, who put plants at the bottom of his hierarchy of life, just above the rocks. How unkind. And then Linnaeus came along, and Linnaeus did a good job with plants. But he said rocks grow, plants grow and live, and animals grow, live and feel. he did a lot of good things, but he was wrong there. We know now, of course, that plants do feel. I'm going to skip through this, let you have a look, read the words, but this might be taken as a typical classroom here. And we've got students not looking very enthusiastic. They're being taught about plants, and they have all these preconceptions about plants. And they don't just come from the students. The blue one on the right comes from teachers. So there are issues going on here about plant unawareness. But thanks heavens, not all subscribe to these views. And actually, of course, we realize now that plants are far from boring. They do all kinds of amazing things. They have to solve the same problems of existence, but on the whole, they're rooted to the spot. Okay, so they do move, they do feel, they do sense, but they do it in their own way. And that sometimes is difficult to grasp. I do think that the concept of the wood wide web is an absolutely brilliant concept to communicate both the similarity and the total otherness of plants as organisms finding solutions to the problems of survival. Okay, so I'm guessing you all know the origin of the term plant blindness. Wondersee and Schussler, a bit over 20 years ago, the inability to see or notice plants in one's environment, and some other aspects which aren't always covered. Inability to recognize importance, the appreciation, inability to appreciate the aesthetic and unique biological features, and the misguided Aristotelian ranking of plants as inferior to animals. Why? Well, Wondersee and Schussler were rather impressed with the idea that the human brain can't cope with all this planty stuff and has to filter a lot of it out. David Hershey, on the other hand, wasn't impressed with this as a major cause. Instead, he invoked zoochauvinism and plant neglect. Bethan Stagg, more recently, has done the best literature review on the topic, and she has actually found two sources of evidence. Evidence for plant blindness comes from educational research, whereas evidence against plant blindness comes from ethnobotany. So in South America, for example, participants could name and identify the uses of 50 or more plant species in 81 studies in her review. And I think that's great. I think, in a sense, the 20 years have provided a lot of thought-provoking research, and I think we understand more the nuances of plant blindness, and it's time for a change. We're going to hear about plant awareness disparity as an alternative narrative, which makes a lot of sense. But also I think we need to change direction. We need to move towards positive ways to encourage awareness, empathy and passion for plants in our schools and more widely. So here's a thought experiment. What if we unleash the mind-blowing world of plant diversity on school children before they have to learn about photosynthesis and so on in some nondescript plant? Bethan Stagg has also shown that when engaging methods are used for teaching botany, it's not difficult to reduce the symptoms of plant blindness. I think we need to be very positive about that. Enjoyment is key. Plants can be fun, so dish out the hand lenses, throw a pile of plants on the table and make plants fun. This works at all levels. Talking of all levels, here are teacher trainers. What if we train up and support teachers to have more confidence with plants? The solution lies in highlighting the relevance of plants to people's daily lives, using appealing media that promote an image of botany as exciting and relevant, which of course we know it is. I love this quote here from Zia at Linnean Learning. I will read it. Plants are wild. They eat sunlight. They make love to birds, bees, bats, all other manner of beasts, including themselves. They have chemical defenses. They clone. They have gender arrangements beyond our wildest dreams. They talk to each other through their roots. They graft. They are borderline immortal. They're some of the most successful organisms imaginable, and it is ironically and paradoxically for these reasons that this is why we think of them as part of the background, because they're so spectacular, independent and ubiquitous and puzzling. So what if teachers could be encouraged to view plants through this lens? Okay, at the University of Reading in 2019, we did loads of stuff the year before lockdown. Thanks heavens it was 2019, not 2020. We ran the Big Botany Challenge, a symposium, brought together 80 delegates from 50 different organizations. And we were looking at the issue of promoting passion for plants in our schools. Okay, and these were the themes. It was the most beautiful symposium room I think I've ever seen. My colleague Alistair Cullum filled it with glorious plants. We were looking particularly at enhancing the profile of plants in secondary school curriculum. You can check out our video following the link. We had collaboration between educators, employers and industry, and here are some of the presenters, and you can hear their take-home messages on the video. Okay, roots, the roots of plant blindness. This is Roots and Roots, of course, and here's a schematic roadmap. And these are some of the issues. I'm going to touch on some of these. I'm looking at education. I'm looking at schools. One could equally, and I have, thought about universities and wider, but I touched very briefly on those because of time limits. It's a taproot, of course, not a fibrous root, sadly for my beloved Poaceae. But education is at the centre, and there are key issues around. And I'll touch on some of these now. So here we are. Here are my teachers, and this is critical. Teacher training has to be central to the roadmap. Supporting teachers. Very few biology teachers have botanical training, and even those with biology degrees will tend to have specialised in zoology or microbiology or biomedical. So if teachers haven't embraced or been introduced to botany, how can we expect their students to? So teacher training, absolutely critical, and in any follow-up symposium, and I do hope we're going to have one, we'll have teachers and teacher training at the heart. Curriculum review, critical. Plants are in the curriculum, and they are there, especially in biology practicals, because plants are easier to access for experimental work. But there are fewer plant learning outcomes than zoological ones, about 2 to 1 on average, and appealing topics are very often not there, such as ethnobotany, so the real connection of plants and people. There's been a lot of research activity on this, especially the Royal Society of Biology group, working also with Science and Plants for Schools. And this is a proactive approach because there will be curriculum review. It's been delayed because of Brexit and the pandemic, but curriculum review will come, and we need to be ready. And this curriculum review group particularly is ready for an inclusive approach to biology fit for the 21st century. Another key element of the roadmap is the textbook. It's the main, often the only reference source for most students, and its importance cannot be underestimated. The existing textbooks are rather variable. Some cover plant topics very well and have images of plants throughout, for example, the one shown here, but others are less plant-friendly, even old-fashioned. And textbooks have to be exciting if the students are to engage with plants. So textbooks are a critical area. I would call this one of the open door areas because I think quite a lot is being done, but there is more to be done too. Other books, these are my 3 suggestions to be on all biology school shelves. I'm going to particularly flag up In Praise of Plants. It's a book that has really moved me. If you haven't come across it, maybe one of the big take-home messages from my talk is that you buy it and you read it, because it's really an amazing approach. I'll just give you a quote here as to whet the appetite. Plants are beautiful, they smell good, dead or alive. We owe a portion of our mental equilibrium to them, just as we note their importance in our cities. A large part of the world's beauty is because of them. In my opinion, this is more than simple beauty. I do commend Francis Halle's wonderful book, the English translation, unless you want the original French, is there. The examinations, an important element. If plants are in the A-level examinations, they will be taught, and they are there. And often the questions are well written and include scope for testing students' abilities. But with curriculum review, we were also going to need to engage with exam boards. And I just finished this here. This is a question about the giant water lily. It's worth 1 mark, and it just seems to me the giant water lily is so much more fascinating than the stomata on the upper leaf surface only, important though that is. It was the stimulus for the design of the Crystal Palace, the largest glass building of its time, lasted 85 years, was 560 odd meters long, and it was a testament to one gardener who actually designed it, and one very big leaf, which was his stimulus. Another element of the roadmap is having plants in the classroom. Absolutely essential. There are resources already out there about this, but this is my colleague Alistair Cullum at our symposium talking about plants and getting plants into the classroom, getting more into the classroom. The average teacher will have geraniums and elodea, but maybe not much else. And this, I think, is a role for the RHS education section to diversify plants in the classroom. Contact with plants is absolutely vital to promote plant awareness and plant love. Plants are everywhere, so even the school that has just a tarmac playground will have plants there. They will be surviving, and they will be there to be observed, admired, identified, use the hand lens, and also as examples of extraordinary resourcefulness. That is the green plant world. Very important to have hands-on with plants. You cannot do this stuff with an animal. You can't tear an animal in half these days, but you can tear a primrose in half, and you can think about heterostyle and the implications for breeding systems and evolution. I had to put this in because I'm a field botanist. Identification of plants is central to me, and some people are a little bit sniffy about it, saying Latin names are a waste of time. I was delighted to see this paper from Finland, and making a herbarium is on the curriculum in Finland. Pleased to see also the example there from Jersey, where actually a teacher, we'll be hearing from John later, is encouraging this kind of thing. It's absolutely essential. Knowing the names of common plants in your locality gives you a firmer grounding in your local environment and will make you more aware of conservation issues, for example. Outreach is critical. This was a piece of work we did funded by the British Ecological Society in 2019. Smelly plants, a wonderful way of engaging school kids. Not all plants smell beautiful to attract pollinators. This one stinks because it wants to attract flies. We're looking for a run-up, a second Why Are Plants Smelly event. We had a bit of money left over. It's been delayed because of pandemic, so any schools that are interested will be doing this online, I hope, later this year. That was pretty much a lightning tour of my roadmap themes, or key roadmap themes for schools. I want to touch on universities. I work in the university sector. Arguably, that's the area I am most qualified to talk, but schools are absolutely essential, and the interaction between schools and universities is central. But for universities, I'm going to touch on a couple of things. We've run the Botanical University Contest or Challenge for some years now. We started in 2016, and this year we had to run it online for obvious reasons. And that meant actually that we had a much better engagement. 15 universities got involved. And I just have to show this screenshot where I was looking behind the scenes, and it was just wonderful to see these 15 teams here and to see their engagement. And from the feedback, we had an online after party, a Zoom after party. I don't know if we're going to have one today. But the young botanists discovering that there is a community of botanists, because very often they feel on their own. We know in universities there are issues that need to be addressed of engaging with plants, just as with schools. and it was great for the students to see that there was a community of botanists they could engage with. And it's very much up to us botanists to support student botanical societies. I think using online networking is good, and telling the students they're not alone, that actually they're not alone in their love of plants, and that we can work together as a group. And I found Botanical University Contest a really nice vehicle of promoting this, and we're looking to expand this even internationally going forward. I do think mentors are really important. If you talk to anybody interested in plants, where it came from, it very often came from a family member, or maybe from university, or maybe from school. Ambassadors are important kinds of mentors, and the 21st century gives us technology, it gives us social media, which has an upside in terms of the botanical community. And these are just some examples of plant ambassadors on Twitter, which is social media I use. Instagram, I know nothing about, but I think it's an important area. And I'm flagging up two of these here. The bottom, Joshua Ajueli, one of my recent plant diversity students at Reading. He's now doing a PhD in the United States. And he's on the Love Links Plants series early April. So check him out, particularly in terms of careers in botany. And on the right there, the green blue Peter badge. The media, so important for promoting plants, and it does such a bad job. Joshua Stiles, I'm going to be talking about sphagnum on blue Peter, so that you can't get much cooler than that. I return to Francis Halley here as I come to a conclusion. He pointed out, as we know as botanists, that actually not one but two Noah's Arks are needed. And he has the first one here called Phyton. And this emphasizes my take-home messages, that we are now at a stage where we move on, I think, from the ideas of plant blindness to plant awareness disparity, and positive ways of encouraging and enhancing plant awareness and plant love, and the central place of education in the roadmap for tackling the roots of plant awareness disparity. It's then time to sail on into the green yonder of plant awareness, encouraging the beauty, fascination, importance of plants for all our sakes. And this is why I say the 21st century has to be the century of plants. Thank you very much for listening.